March 2nd, 1945, Western Germany. A wet fog settles into the shallow hills near a country crossroads north of the Rhine. Frost still hardens the grass, and moisture crawls slowly across steel armor, collecting along welded seams. A Sherman tank waits in place, engine idling in a steady pattern. 4 beats. A pause. 4 beats again. The sound is the only movement in a landscape suspended between night and morning. Inside the hull, Private First Class William Arden, 30 years old, peers forward through a narrow vision slit. The road ahead bends faintly through the mist, its edges swallowed by gray. Nothing else reveals itself. Orders do not change. Hold position recon must confirm that German units have pulled back. The doctrine is simple. Frontal armor toward the threat. Never expose the flank. Every manual prints the same principle. Every instructor repeats it. Training turns it into instinct. Angle away from any suspected anti-tank threat. Never move toward the muzzle. Toward means mistake. Toward means the steel breaks. But Arden keeps seeing small details that authority cannot measure. The ditch to the left looks soft from the night's rain. A single metallic crack breaks the morning. Not thunder, not random debris. A shot from somewhere ahead, distant but exact. A first ranging round. It does not hit. It does not need to. The silence afterward is confirmation that someone is watching back. Arden keeps his eyes narrow, following where the sound might align with contours. The fog thims just enough to show a darker line against a hedge. Static creeps across the tank's internal radio. Words are there, but distance and weather fold them into noise. Platoon commander repeats the same directive. Hold. Trust the system. Trust the map. Trust the assumption that the enemy is falling away from the Rhine. Arden breathes once. The air inside feels mechanical, filtered, lacking warmth. He shifts his boot on the pedal. One small movement, the kind that does not trip alarms. His hand rests on the control stick. The tank's turret stays forward, dutiful and blind. But Arden's thoughts tilt toward the threat instead of away from it. Toward the barrel hidden in the fog. Toward the source of the crack that broke the rule. Another pause, longer than expected. The ground waits. Arden considers the timing between rounds. The next one could arrive without warning. He pictures angles, distances, the seconds it takes for steel to cross open ground. Manuals cannot calculate a field softened by rain. In the quiet, instinct grows louder. Would you keep waiting, trusting a printed rule? Or would you turn the weight of steel into the danger before the danger finishes measuring you? Before the war, Bill Arden worked in a Detroit machine shop. He arrived before sunrise, punching the same dented time clock that marked thousands of precise mornings. Turbine housings sat under bright lamps while he calibrated each unit with measured pressure. His palms learned to read steel by feel alone. Heat told a story. Vibration revealed error. Balance decided whether a part would survive rotation or tear itself apart. Machines demanded respect. Quiet. Exact respect. That discipline made sense in a world where measurements were constant and consequences were predictable. He remembers the streetcar rides home. Uniformed men talking about sports and shifts. His clothes always smelled of hot oil. On weekends, he helped neighbors fix tractors, tightening bolts in correct order. Stability came from following rules that never changed. Angles, torque, tolerance. A system protected the people who honored it. Bill kept his head down and worked. He believed reliability was a form of duty. Inside the Sherman, those habits returned. He tapped each switch twice before engaging, counted gear changes under his breath. He listened for any mismatch between track and engine tone, a sign of mud, misalignment, or stress. The others laughed, saying he thought more like the tank than a soldier. The loader joked that Bill could diagnose a loose bracket blindfolded. Arden never reacted. The machine was not a joke. Here, steel kept them alive. A missed detail had weight. The fog outside makes the hoe feel smaller. The engine's idle thrum pushes through the floor. Arden rests his hand near the control handle and reviews everything he can control. Fuel pressure steady. Coolant cycling. Turret locks engaged. No problems, but the environment refuses to give reassurance. The field ahead offers no certainty. Doctrine assumes direction of threat. The manual gives comfort in print, yet steel in the real world absorbs forces paper cannot consider. He thinks of his father's voice. An older man formed by the factories before the Great Depression. Metal survives by leaning into pressure, he had said. Running from force only gives it more to break. Arden never questioned that logic. Machines exist to push back. They hold lines. They do not retreat from a threat they can confront. A gust of damp air pushes a faint chill through gaps in the hatch. Arden adjusts his helmet, eyes still on the visor's narrow frame of visibility. The memory of Detroit lingers. Concrete floors, rows of equipment, everything arranged to reduce risk. War removes the guardrails. Here the ground becomes enemy. Weather reshapes the rules. He feels a strain not in the engine but in geometry. The Sherman's armor sits angled wrong for whatever waits at the curve. Exposed see the vulnerable seam. Time stretches between radio messages. Authority insists patience saves lives, but authority does not feel the tremor of steel wanting to move. Arden checks the handle again. 1 mm of tension. A system can protect or delay. If you are responsible for the weight that carries 4 lives, would you keep trusting the rule or trust the steel beneath your hands? This platoon is not alone. It is one column in a planned advance stretching kiln behind and ahead. Fuel trucks, spare parts, ammunition carriers, all depend on this road remaining open and efficient. Each delay sends consequences forward. Infantry at the riverbank rely on armor to secure the left flank before daylight strengthens enemy resolve. The system measures success in minutes saved, not shells fired. A crossroads like this becomes essential ground. If held, supply flows. If blocked, momentum freezes. A single disabled tank could turn timetable into immobility. Arden keeps that structure in mind. He knows the Sherman beneath him is more than a weapon. It is cargo speed and shields scheduled to arrive at precise intervals. Officers miles behind use maps and radio bursts to track those arrivals. Fuel consumption is translated into time math. Distance becomes duration. Even the return of static on the radio introduces drift in the plan. Doctrine states that armor must push only in coordination, never acting alone. Unseen threats are to be bypassed, not challenged without certainty. Forward motion protects the clock. The tank's radio ticks again in its regulated pattern. Fuel level remains steady. Track tension unchanged. Turret rotation nominal. These details feed the system's confidence that this segment of steel can carry its weight across this sector. But Arden studies the environment with a machinist's suspicion. The damaged barn marking the turn is too intact on one side. Impact scars only face the road. They now occupy to the right. The ditch runs straight. Perfect alignment for an ambush crew trained to exploit routine. He calculates response time. 5 seconds to reverse from idle. 6 seconds more to pivot away enough to change the angle of exposure. 10 seconds to be hit if he keeps obeying procedure. Numbers in his head fall into place as clearly as turbine measurements once did. Doctrine expects tanks to favor the path of least vulnerability. German gunners expect that too. The system's advantage becomes a pattern the enemy can aim at. Another gust moves the fog. Moisture beads on the periscope glass. Arden feels the slight climb of engine temperature. Impatience, warming steel. The loader shifts his weight, unaware of how his motion affects balance. Small things matter in confined machinery. Arden's fingers apply pressure to the control lever, stopping just short of movement. Waiting for certainty means waiting for a second shot. The hedge beyond the bend hides skill. A German crew lies there, well-trained, armed with mathematics of their own. They know distances, angles, and hesitation. They predict the moment when a Sherman will start to turn away. One shell timed correctly can remove not just one tank, but the schedule it was built to keep. The entire Allied advance depends on predictability. Predictability feeds the supply line, but predictability also feeds a gunner waiting for steel to follow the rulebook. Arden breathes once. Decisions affecting miles of men rest inside one fog-covered intersection. If the system demands stability, the wind shifts with a low sweep across the fields, pushing damp air westward. A faint scent rides the movement, burnt cordite, sharp and chemical, too recent to belong to distant batteries. Arden lifts his chin slightly. His senses listen beyond instruction. Training taught him to trust machines. Experience taught him to trust absence more. Something unseen has already disturbed the air. Behind a farmhouse wrapped in fog, birds erupt upward in sudden unison. Their wings beat panic against the morning stillness. Not a gradual rise, a single synchronized flight. Arden follows their path with a narrow field of view through the periscope. The flux starting point aligns with the curve ahead, a blind angle, a gunner's sanctuary. A second metallic crack arrives without warning, sharper and more precise than the first. Soil bursts upward near the roadside, clumps flung like gravel, thrown by invisible force. The energy feels directed now, not exploratory. The commander claims it is stray artillery overshooting from deeper lines. Procedure prefers that explanation, but the ground's reaction argues intention. Radio static intrudes on the comm inside the Sherman. A nearby platoon reports losing a tank only minutes ago. No visual contact, no discovered threat, only destruction arriving from nowhere. The operator's voice wavers beneath the static, trying to sound controlled. Arden, here's what the officers do not. Fear trimmed into professionalism. The fog holds subtle truths. One patch forms a gap too exact to be natural, like a curtain pulled aside just enough for aim. Arden finds a barn window missing its glass, yet the shards do not glitter below it. They were removed cleanly to create a field of fire. He notices a small puddle by the ditch. No breeze touches the surface, yet a ripple spreads outward, a vibration carried through earth. Machines communicate danger through tension. So does terrain. Inside the hull, the loader tries humor again. Something about Arden wanting to calculate geometry before breakfast. The joke falls into silence. Arden keeps his eyes forward. He presses his foot lightly on the gear pedal, feeling the engine's prepared response. The machine anticipates command. Steel wants movement. Another stretch of quiet descends. Too long to be peace. Every second without a sound suggests a German crew perfecting their correction. The hidden barrel takes measurements no one else respects. It has learned their angle. It has learned their obedience. The commander repeats the rule: maintain formation. Angle away from any suspected gun. Doctrine demands turning vulnerability from threat. Arden knows the rule by heart. He knows the thickness of their side armor. He knows what a perfect hit does to it. Manuals cannot smell burning. Moisture condenses on the periscope glass. Arden wipes a narrow arc, clearing a slit of vision. A faint glint pierces the gray, a reflection to stray for foliage. The moment vanishes as fog folds over it again, but the memory of shape remains precise in his mind. Metal hides behind leaves. His breathing slows. Calculations assemble in his head. Distance, trajectory, timing between shots. It is not instinct alone, it is pattern. The German gunner is ready, waiting for them to remain angled wrong, waiting for the next second of indecision. War often favors those who fire first. Ambush favors those who wait. Arden stares into a horizon that refuses to reveal itself. If a silent threat already holds aim on your breath, how long should you sit still and let it finish the math? The commander's voice arrives through the internal radio. Steady and controlled. Maintained formation. Angle left. Do not expose the thinner front armor. Hold position until reconnaissance confirms the enemy has withdrawn. Doctrine repeats itself through static. Firm in the belief that procedure protects life, Arden keeps his eyes forward, but his focus drifts to the numbers living beneath the steel. Side armor thickness is known. Deflection angles are proven. Every manual reinforces the same equation. Protection grows as the silhouette narrows. Turning away is designed to save the crew. But Arden's instincts challenge the calculation. Years spent reading the tremor of machines taught him when tension signals risk. Here, the ground dictates geometry. The ditch constrains. Retreat. The turn ahead forces exposure if the next shell lands 10 in deeper. A crewman dies before anyone names the threat. A direct side hit ends everything in half a second. A frontal hit, even if retells still give the machine a chance to resist. Steel. Fighting. Steel. The rule assumes visibility, assumes breathing room, assumes the luxury of knowing direction. Fog removes those assumptions. The loader reloads his joke, light-hearted, unaware of how thin the line becomes between humor and silence. Arden does not respond. He listens to the engine pulse under his seat, heat-building vibrations shifting. Steel knows the approach of danger. A machine under threat carries a different rhythm.